All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. We've been talking databases. In particular, we've been going over SQL, A Beginner's Guide by Opal and Sheldon. And I'm up to Chapter 7. I gave a little prelude, and since then, just so you know, I did go in and I added all of the data from all of the record or all of the tables. So everything has now been populated into my Northwinds copy. So in Chapter 7, we want to use a select statement to retrieve data, use the where statement to define or refine search conditions, use the group by option to group query results, use the having clause to specify group search conditions, and finally use the order by clause to sort query results. So the main thing that you have in here is the select statement. And as you can see, it's pretty big. Now, everything that's in there that's inside of brackets like this means that that particular part of the clause, the select clause, is optional. When you are writing an actual select statement, by and large, and again, I'm being general here, but you're going to write it like this. Select fields, field or fields, from table or tables. All right? Now, there's a lot more you can put into it than that. We'll get into that in just a bit. But let's just start real simply. Okay? Let's just jump back into the code here. And we'll describe our employees table. We'll work with employees. So each employee has a last name, a first name, a birth date, a hire date, etc. So let's say what we want to know is we want to select the first name, the last name, and the salary from employees. Okay? So there are our 9 employees. Nancy Davalio, Andrew Fuller, Janet Leverling, Margaret Peacock, Stephen Buchanan, Michael Suyama, Robert King, Laura Callahan, and Ann Dodsworth. Now you'll notice on here that when I listed this, I had all these fields. I had 19 different fields I could choose from. I only chose 3 of them. Why? Well, if I want to choose everything, I can say select star from employees and get ready. It is showing me all the information, but some of it is so big and so wide that it can't fit on the screen, and that's why it looks as goofy as it does. So again, let's describe employees. Not sure why I'm getting the beeps, but I am. All right. And if we only want to show certain information, so let's just describe a typical employee. So let's select the first name, the last name, the address, the city, the postal code from employees. So this is a typical employee. Unknown column because I spelled city incorrectly. And there you get it. Now, why does it still look funky? It still looks funky because this was actually too wide, evidently, to hold all that. All right, let's leave off the postal code and see if we do that, if it is a little bit easier for us to read. It may or may not be. Nope. Not sure. It looks like the problem here is with Michael Suyama. All right. So let's leave off the address just for the heck of it. I'm just trying a few things here. All right. So there's the first name and last name and city of all our employees. So what we did here was we used the word select, and then we said what field or fields do we want to see. All right. Well, instead of employees, let's select Let's describe the customers table. And you see each customer has an ID, a name, etc., company name, and a contact name. So let's select, because we've got a lot more customers than we do employees, and that's a good thing. Let's select the company name and the contact name from customers. And I spelled something wrong again. From customers. And there are our 93 customers. Each of them has a company name. Each of them has a contact name. So what I'm trying to get across to you is, again, it is select one or more fields from one or more tables. Okay, and if I put that in right now, of course I get an error message because I don't have anything called fields and I don't have anything called tables. But I'm showing you the syntax. So in the textbook here, what the author mentions is that you've got all these clauses, and we're going to look at all of them. Even if I have to do 3 or 4 lectures on this chapter, not a problem. But what we're looking at now is just the select and the from. So the author says, let's take a closer look at the select clause and the from clause, because those are the 2 required clauses in the select statement. The select clause includes the optional, distinct, and all keywords. That's kind of important. So let's go back and let's try something here. Again, let's describe our customers. And you notice that customers have cities and they have countries, etc. Let's select the city from customers. And we get 93 different cities. And you'll notice as we look through here, we've got several from Sao Paulo, several from Mexico, it looks like DF, several from London, etc. If I didn't want all those to show, if I didn't want duplicates to show, I could say select distinct city from customers. Now instead of 93, I get 70, but there are no repeats. All right. If you don't use distinct, what's assumed is all, which means show all of them. You don't have to say all because it is the default value. But I believe if I change this and bring this back here and type in, instead of distinct, if I put in the word all, I think it'll still work. But I get 93 and I get the repeats back again. All right. So just showed you that. Now, a couple things, and this may be a little different than some of the other lectures, but that's okay. This Ask the Expert says, you state that you can use an asterisk to include all columns in a query result. Does this ever present a problem if the number of columns changes? All right. It's definitely recommended that if you've got a big table and that big table has many records with many fields in each record, you don't use select star, because you're ending up printing out a lot of stuff. Probably you can't read it on the screen anyway. All right. So just print out the fields you need is the bottom line. Now they give some examples here, and we're going to get into all this stuff in later chapters. I don't want to confuse you, so that's why I'm not using their examples. All right. Let's look at an example. Let's look at one of the tables we got. So let's show the tables, and let's grab what's in suppliers. Oh, that's still way too many fields. How about territories? That's a nice one because there's only 3 fields in there. So I can select star from territories. That is okay because it's small enough that that's all we're getting. All right. Maybe when I do this, I don't want everything. I don't really need that region ID. So I can select the territory ID and the territory description from territories. And a little easier to read now. All right. What if I only want, all right, just to show you what we're going to be building towards. In fact, if we look here, notice that it's in order based on territory ID, but not on description. All right. What if I want in alphabetic order based on this field? Then I can just say select this from territories, order by territory description. And I got an error. No, because I ran those two together. Now notice it's in alphabetic order based on the territory description. So there's so many things that we can do with this. We can select, and then what you'll get in later chapters is we can select from more than one table. As long as we're able to directly or indirectly relate two or more tables together, we can select information from them. We'll build towards that in just a bit. You can use the where clause to define search conditions. Let's try that one. Let's show our tables again. And what do we have? Let's describe our employees. All right, you notice that each employee has a country. So let's select the first name, the last name, and the country from employees. And you'll notice that our employees are either from the United States or they're from the UK. So let's run the same query. Select first name, comma, last name, comma, country from employees, but I'm going to say where country equals USA. Now, if I did this right, it should only show me Nancy Davalio, Andrew Fuller, Janet Leverling, Barbara Peacock, and Laura Callahan. It should leave out Stephen Buchanan, Michael Siyama, Robert King, and Ann Dodsworth. So I should go down from 9 records to 5 records if I wrote it correctly. And you see that I did. So the where allows you to put criteria onto a query to only get those records or that information or both that you're looking for. Okay? Let's do this again. So let's go back and select what we just did, the first name, last name, and country, but instead of country, let's select the salary. And you can see our salaries. All right? So let's do the same query again, but let's now say where the salary is less than or equal to $2,000. And you notice I only get 3 records. Margaret Peacock, that's under 2,000. Stephen Buchanan, that's under 2,000. Robert King, that's under 2,000. But if you notice, not under 2, 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 and not under 2. Now, if we run the reverse query and we say where it's greater than $2,000, I should get the other 6 back. And you can see I do. Sometimes when you run queries like that, it's kind of nice to have the results shown to you based on the salary. So I can say order by salary, and let's have the highest one first. So we'll say DESC for descending. Same records we just had, but notice now we've got it in descending order based on the salary. All the different things that you can do with this, it literally is limitless. So the where clause, again, allows you to put criteria in. Now, I've only shown you single criteria under the where clause. So I can do this. Let's run the same query again. Whoops, don't know what happened there. All right, so we'll run that same query, but we'll say where salary greater than or equal to 200 and country equals USA. And it looks like we went down from 6 rows to 4. So looking at those, who do we have? We are missing here Michael Suyama, and we're missing Ann Dodsworth. So if we look, Michael Suyama is from the UK, and Dodsworth is from the UK. So what we said here was we want the first name, last name, and salary where the salary is greater than 2,000 and the country must be USA. So that said, show us only the records that meet that criteria. If I'd have changed that, instead of said and country equals USA, I'd have said or country equals USA. Now notice I get 7 back. So who extra do we get back here? Margaret Peacock, and her salary is not greater than 2,000. All right. But we get everyone who's got a salary of greater than 2,000 or their country is USA. So there's 7. And why does that look funky? Because it's possible that some of those 9 people that are in here are from England, as long as their salary is greater than 2,000. Or it's possible their salary is not greater than 2,000, but they're from the United States. So when you say and, both criteria have to be true. If you say or, only one criteria has to be true. And that's what they show you in the book here. All right. They use their own examples. I like what I'm doing with you a little better. You may or may not agree. Okay. So let's take a look quickly at something that we did not do before. And I'm already jumping up on time. So I'm just going to run this query and then we're going to stop. All right. I'm going to run the same query, but right here, instead of saying this, I'm going to put in, I'm going to put in not. All right, I got the same thing. We're not. And we get the other 2 records. We asked for an inversion here. So we said, hey, find everybody who meets those criteria, and then put a not in front of it, which means find everyone who doesn't meet that criteria. And you notice both of them, Stephen Buchanan and Robert King, both make less than $2,000. And Stephen Buchanan and Robert King, Stephen Buchanan, UK, Robert King, UK. Okay, so that's why we only see those 2. That's what's mentioned in here. All right. Group by to group query results. Well, what if I did this? And this is something we're going to talk about much more depth and breadth of coverage, but let's select the sum of the salaries from employees. That says give me a sum. So that says altogether the employees make that amount, $20,362. And to make it a little prettier, I can say round this, because that would look a little nicer, and round that to 2 decimal places. That looks a little bit more professional. All right. But what if I don't want to do it exactly like that? What if somebody says to me, okay, how much did the people from England make, and how much did the people from America make? So I can say, select round this from employees, group by country. And now I get the people from America and the people from England. And you say, well, I don't know what country is what. So what if I select that amount and the country? So it's showing us who makes what. Again, one of the reasons I like this so much is, to me, you may or may not agree with this, everything so much makes sense. It's so intuitive, and it pretty much is the way you think it would be. So let's stop right here and we'll pick it up in just a couple.